Monerotopia, a show for the Monero community where all are welcome to join. From noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now.
All right. Good morning, Tux.
Good morning.
How you doing? I know you got a busy day today.
I do, yeah.
Your non-Monero life. So we'll try to make the show quick, right?
If it's
so many things, guys. So many things. But we'll try to keep it to an hour. I don't think that hasn't happened in quite some time, but we'll see what we can do. So without
no guest today, so
what's that?
No guest today, so
yeah, no guests today. That should shorten things a little bit. We got somebody new doing the dev report. And yeah, everything else should be the same. Any announcements? I don't think so, right?
No, not that I know of.
All right, let's jump into it.
Price report. All right, let's go.
Do it.
The Monerotopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Local Monero. Avoid using KYC exchanges. Buy and sell Monero directly for fiat, peer-to-peer.
Hey,
Bawdy,
Chris.
Yeah. I always forget to unmute. It's like the one thing I always forget to do. So, how's it going? Good morning.
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. Just actually, the thing you asked me to cover yesterday kind of inspired me to fix up some of my scripts that were not they weren't as good as they could have been, particularly with the rates and looking at recessions and stuff like that. So, and we talked about global liquidity like a couple months ago, and I promised that I'd kind of build a script to do that. So I did that last night too. So
awesome. Yeah. I'm excited to hear what you came up with.
Cool. So I'll try and power through this. So we had the CPI numbers last week, and it was like kind of a mixed bag. The producer price index came up in blue. The CPI bumped up, and that's basically the inflation of everything combined together. But the core inflation came down, and the reason for this is likely because oil prices, energy prices have been higher, and core inflation doesn't include food and energy. So the core inflation continues to go down, which is kind of good because it's the more sticky one. But CPI's come up. There's a Fed meeting next week, and the expectation across the board is they're going to hold rates steady. That seems to make sense. Again, I think I see weakness in the market. So it would make sense to me that they're going to hold rates steady, try and, hope for the best for inflation. We also saw the unemployment numbers tick up just a little bit. And that's, in a way, that's kind of a good thing because that will help to get inflation under control. But in a way, that's kind of a bad thing because unemployment is one of these things that's associated with recession. So as unemployment ticks up, that sort of puts us into recession. So it's we'll talk about how they define recession here in a minute. We'll get to that. We'll cover all the usual stuff first, like the macro. So the 10-year yield here is looking like it wants to move up. Where it's kind of hit that resistance there, and then it's hitting that again. So I mean, you kind of expect like, okay, could it do this? Sure. It could also just kind of decide to break out next week. So 10-year yield is looking like it's ready to go, at least to me. And take a look at dollar index. Dollar index has continued to rise. It's interesting to me that the dollar index has been rising as the stock market has still kind of been like hovering near its all-time highs. So that's kind of a trend that had happened at the beginning of the last bear market, where the dollar index had like made a really big move to the upside, and yet the stock market was making all-time highs. The only thing that's different about that is that we've got the reverse repos have been coming down. We've been seeing money leave the reverse repos. Now, what we're going to do actually is combine this information because we can also look at other things like the Fed balance sheet. So it would be better if we could just combine everything to understand the broad picture of liquidity, which we're going to do. Gold hasn't moved much, just kind of flat, just hanging out. To me, this actually looks like strength because the reality is that the dollar has been rising significantly, but gold has been doing a pretty good job of holding its own, which is gold multiplied by the dollar index, which we've talked about before. So realistically, I mean, gold has been doing pretty good. And this is a rising triangle. Usually you would say these break down, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to break up. You could still expect this thing to go into 2024 before it breaks to the upside. But, I do think it's probably getting closer. Let's see. Okay, did we cover everything? Hang on a second. Fed meeting, yes, EPI numbers. Okay. Okay, so what I realized with the big overview yield chart that I showed you guys was that I was kind of using the wrong indicators. I was using kind of like the pleb US 10-year that you would find on, I think it's TVC. So there's different providers. There's different people that publish numbers and information, and then TradingView just takes that information. They have some kind of API, they pull that data, and then they present it to you in charts. And the problem was I wasn't using the actual like Fed numbers. So they call it DGS1. That's the 1-year yield. DGS10, that's the 10-year yield. That's what they use on the Federal Reserve website. And so what I realized is that I wasn't actually using that, and because of that, I wasn't really getting the full picture. We need to zoom out here. There we go. So the full picture goes back to about 1962. I think in reality, the 10-year goes back even further than that, but there's probably some special reason why the Fed doesn't report it back any further than this. So at any rate, the colors of the lines have changed just a little bit. I added a few extra ones. Basically, we're going from the 3-month, 6-month, 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, and 30-year treasuries. And then obviously the in white here is the overnight lending rate. And then on bottom, as we have had before, is the overall inversion. So just to give you an idea of what this looks like. Oh, that's the wrong one. All right, treasury spread. So just to give you an idea of what this looks like, we're basically pulling all of the different security timeframes, and then there's kind of 2 lines we're doing here. The longest line in light pink is basically all of the yields that we have, which is the 1, 5, 10, and 20. That goes all the way back to 1962, but the Fed started adding new yield products like the 30-year and I think the 3-month and the 6-month came around like 1977, 1981, around that time frame. So what we do is after those were added, looks like 1981 they were all added. I kind of like got lazy because some were added in 1977 and then 81, so I just said, okay, screw it. Only do the big calculation from 81. So basically we're taking all the spreads and then adding them all together and then taking their average. So that gives us like the big picture of what's happening with the yield curve inversion. And so the point of this chart that you can see, like, okay, on the shorter term, you can kind of see the yield spreads all in different colors, right? The shorter term are kind of lighter colors, and then they move up to these darker blues. And then the red is obviously the inversion. So what you can see is that technically we were actually more inverted, like crazy inverted in the late 70s and early 80s, like right around 1980. So we haven't quite gotten there yet, but what we have is unprecedented for, I guess that would be like 50 years now. So, which is interesting, because people talk about the bond bull market, the 50-year bond bull market, and obviously how in 1971 it's fairly closely associated with the severing of the gold standard. So, what we're really looking at here, I'm gonna turn some of these off because this will just get cluttered, way too cluttered. We'll keep the overnight federal funds rate on the board. Come on. Okay, and then we're going to turn on U.S. recessions. So effectively, I just want to show you that U.S. recessions have been associated with yield curve inversions. They follow yield curve inversions going back basically as far as we can look, just about. I guess recessions go back further, but the yield chart doesn't go back farther. Okay, so you'll notice that this yield curve inversion that happened in like 1970 was followed by a recession. Again, yield curve inversion followed by recession. Same thing here, actually 2 of them, right? So it went really negative, came back, had a recession, came back, inverted again, and then had yet another recession. Slightly almost kind of there, but that's so delayed, you might say that's not really correlation. Again here in obviously 2000, and then again in 2008. So yeah, these yield curve inversions are like historically bad for having recessions. So let's talk about what is a recession. It's not like, so people, the cheeky way to say it, or the kind of common misconception, is that it's 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. And that's not really what it is. I mean, often that can be the case, and often those will overlap, but they look at a lot of different things. They look at the unemployment rate. They look at the, like, what's actually I don't know, payrolls. They look across like a broad sampling and metric of the economy. And it's, they say, like, they even admit that they don't have a specific way of saying when we're in a recession, that they kind of like, you'll know it when you see it, I guess. So it's like, okay, maybe you had some negative GDP growth recently, for example, but the unemployment rate was really, really low. So that factors into things. And the stock markets are doing good. I don't think they actually factor the stock markets in. So a recession is really it's a broad sampling of a bunch of different metrics. I don't know. I think like non-farm payrolls and stuff like that, overall payrolls, salary, things like that. So very broad sampling. So yeah, I mean, the video that you showed me, Doug, I mean, he made a compelling case. He's like, listen, historically, this is basically almost always correlated. Yield curve inversion has basically almost always been correlated with a recession to follow. And a recession almost always means stock market go down. So, he says, if you're going to say that's not the case, then you really need to bring compelling data. So, it might not be enough just to say, hey, reverse repos, it's different this time. We can maintain this yield curve inversion. I do think it is a little bit different this time because of the reverse repos. I think that is kind of a big data point. I think it's really important. But that doesn't mean that that's the full picture. And, it does intuitively, just in my mind, like, what does price have to do? It does seem like this is too far, too fast. Price needs to pull back. It needs to like be healthy and establish a lower range and not just shoot to the upside. Because if it does, like, we're looking at inflation again. That's kind of, in my mind, that's a big driver of inflation, people's mad gains on risk assets. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to look at. Let's take a look at, where did I put it? Okay. Yeah. Let's take a look at the stock market, in terms of recession. We're going to mute the global liquidity for a moment, because we're still talking about recession. So this is what the stock market looks like, for the past, let's just say, since, on the same order of time frame that we were looking at. Maybe we can zoom out one more notch here. There we go. So yeah, you can see that basically, okay, recession, stock market go down, recession starts, stock market down, even like right here, a little recession, stock market down, same thing there. Obviously the .com bust, which is kind of funny because like the recession apparently only happened for a short time frame and then everything was good. I don't know. Probably them fudging the numbers. They love to do that. Recession, 2008, big recession, long recession, lasted like almost 2 years. And then little itty bitty recession here for the word that shall not be mentioned. Okay, so that was like, that's one way of looking at it. You can say, okay, recession basically typically means that the stock.
Hello?
But there's one more. Go ahead, man.
Oh, we lost you for a sec. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, recession typically means stock market go down, which is why, I mean, we should really try to understand historically when could recessions happen. So the other thing that we talked about earlier. So, guys, I will look at the reverse repos and we'll look at the Fed balance sheet and we'll look at the M2 money supply, even though that data is kind of delayed. And the reality is that it's better if you can combine all that data into one aggregate picture of liquidity, right? Because what are we looking at when we say, hey, reverse repos are going down, which means money's coming out of the reverse repo market? That means that money's going somewhere. Is it maybe repaying debt? Is it going to the stock market, going to the bond market, going into crypto? Probably not, but maybe. And then, when we're looking at the Fed balance sheet, if they're expanding their balance sheet, that means banks are putting more reserves onto there. The Federal Reserve is printing money. They're buying assets, right? The expansion of the Fed balance sheet in broad measure means that liquidity is being added to the general market, which means that there's extra cash slushing around, and that cash is going to go somewhere, which is typically risk assets, especially when everyone knows that that liquidity is being added to the market in general. People go for risk assets because they can take the loans, right? The money's cheap. So really what we want to do is combine all that information into really one simple metric that's easier for our monkey brains to understand, and hopefully has some kind of correlation that we can fool ourselves might actually exist, to give us a better picture of what's happening. So this is what this chart is. We're looking at the S&P 500 on the candles. In the green, we have, actually what we'll do here is we'll just silence the global net liquidity. So in the green, this is United States net liquidity, at least how I see it. Basically, it just includes the United States balance sheets, the M2SL, and the reverse repo. So the M2SL, unfortunately, is a delayed reporting by the United States. Everyone else seems to report it fairly frequently, but the United States is delayed by it's a month to a month and a half sometimes before we'll get the picture. So right now, we don't know what the M2SL looks like for September. We probably just got the August 1st numbers, right? So we're delayed by 6 weeks here already. But okay, I just assume, I tell the chart here to assume that number up until the present date, even though we're going to find out that's a different number in the future. But for lack of a better way of doing this, there's probably some kind of estimate out there. I have not been able to find a Wednesday level on the Federal Reserve balance sheet, or sorry, it's called the St. Louis Federal Reserve. I don't know. They put all of the statistics out. They publish all of this data. So, anyways, this is the net liquidity. And as the net liquidity goes up, you'll kind of notice that it goes up sort of along with the stock market. You'll notice there's kind of a cutoff here, and that's probably when they started reporting the Wednesday level on the Federal Reserve balance sheet. I can fix that. I can make this go back farther. Anyways, you'll notice that basically as liquidity expands, it's highly correlated with the stock market. So you'll see that, for example, net liquidity sort of leveled off. And what happened? The stock market thought it was going to continue going up, and then it's it's starting to level off. So it kind of stayed there, hoping, and then it's nope, and then it took a big dump. Also, that was associated with what the Federal Reserve was talking about at the time, the tamper tantrum and all that. So anyways, the stock market is kind of very optimistic in general. People just know that the Fed's going to keep the stock market rolling. So eventually, we had this, the thing that shall not be mentioned in March of 2020. And then liquidity just massively expanded, and we had a market expansion that went with it. So right now, what we've actually had for most of this time is the U.S. liquidity has been dropping, even after a rebound had started to be made. But remember, the stock market does tend to be highly optimistic. And in the absence of a nuclear bomb threat, the nuclear problem that was the housing mortgages in 2008, in the absence of or the dot-com bust, in the absence of some major problem, it doesn't like to crash 50%. It'll crash 15, 25, maybe 30%, but it doesn't like to really just have the bottom fall out, because people are quite optimistic and they tend to know that the Fed's got their back in most all cases. So, the stock market, I think, took this optimistic bounce maybe a little bit ahead of schedule. So this is where we want to look at global liquidity, because it helps us to understand the picture. So let's take a look at the formula down here, just so I can get this right. The global liquidity is taking all of the M2 money supply of the different nations, basically the top 15 nations that make up 99% of the global economy, and then also their balance sheets as well. So we're talking China, USD, Eurozone, Japan, Great British Pound, Korean Won, Canada, good enough, Hong Kong, Brazil, Taiwan, Australia, Sweden, Russia, and Mexico. So that's what this is all composed of, and that's what we're looking at here. And you'll notice that, interestingly enough, there is a little bit more correlation. I would actually almost posit that the correlation with global liquidity, because global liquidity includes the US dollar plus what the rest of the nations are doing. So in my mind, the correlation here is actually really, really good. It's better than it's much better than just looking at the US alone overall. It's still important that we look at the US by itself, because right now we can see that the US liquidity is actually rising, and that money is going to almost certainly stay in the US. It's very likely that money will stay in the US. So this is probably giving a little bit of support to the market right here, is that the US liquidity is actually kind of going up. But we'll mute that again just for the moment. And you can see that basically, we've got this, we've had the net liquidity going up. It was, again, the stock market sort of optimistically bounced. I think a lot of that was also related to the Federal Reserve. Remember back in September, October, you had the Bank of England kind of did a little bond rescue, kind of like the United States did in March this year. The Bank of England did that last year. And then one of the Fed presidents was like, yeah, well, maybe we'll think about, we should maybe pause the interest rates. It's, we've been rising a lot. Maybe we'll pause. And that bounced the stock market sort of ahead of the global liquidity expansion. So anyways, there is a good correlation here. Global liquidity is going down. That would signal downside pressure for the stock market. So that's, that's really kind of in a nutshell, looking at the rates, looking at recessions, looking at global liquidity and how that relates to stock markets. So hopefully that meets your expectations, Senor Doug.
Yeah. Fantastic, man. Fantastic. I may have to rewatch it again. There's a lot of information.
Yeah, we flew through it. I'm trying to keep us, short.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
The Bawdy report is like drinking from a fire hose.
As long as I'm like up and chipper, and haven't stayed up too late the night before.
So what's your latest feel on Monero? Any changes from last week?
No, I mean, it's hard for I can't analyze the Monero price. I think it's probably because I'm too like emotionally involved with it. To me, I mean, there's the chance we get if everyone else goes down, Monero goes down. But at the same time, Monero will go down less. It's just holding its own. It's holding steady here. I think that this downtrending, this line right here, this big downtrending line, this is probably a good place to just imagine if things decide to take their pullback, like we've talked about. That's a line we might tend to follow down for a period of time. I think that maybe 120, maybe we have to go back to 100. I really hope not, but I think 120, 130 is kind of a good place, a good place to find a floor. Again, let's take a look at the wave magic. It takes a second to load. We don't need the purple and red lines. Yeah, that's the only problem with this indicator. You have to wait for it. It's doing calculating all these lines. There's something like 500 lines being printed here right now, so it's it takes a minute for TradingView. So right now we're kind of hanging out in this lower standard deviation. It wouldn't surprise me to come down to the moving average bands. Mm-hmm. So that's right around 120. That could happen, at some point here between now and the end of the year. I don't think that's the end of the world. I think it's, again, just Monero establishing a solid support. I'm saying I'm not going to go lower. I'm just hanging out here. No matter how much selling pressure, how much fake Monero CZ, or how much of their mining, their covert mining operation that they want to do, they're going to have a hard time pressing the price down any further. Someone pointed out to me that this looks a bit like head and shoulders right here. So shoulder and then head. This is the XMR BTC ratio. So this might look like a head and shoulders. And I know a lot of people kind of laugh at head and shoulders. Okay, whatever. It might be. And that would kind of make sense, seeing how we have the other head and shoulders from the XMR.D. This one is, it's a lot bigger. It's still just kind of flat. We're waiting to break to the upside here. Again, breaking to the upside, in my mind, on XMR.D signals risk off in the market. It signals crypto down and probably most likely stocks down. Although stocks and crypto haven't been nearly as correlated as of late. So quick check on the Bitcoin price. Yeah, things went down, took a big dip, and then they came right back up. So it's almost like there was a little bit of fake out here, but overall, that's still not a whole lot of movement. So we're up about 3% from where we left off last week. So fell about 3% and then bounced about 3%. So right now, sitting at this kind of this downsloping resistance line that used to be the channel. If this breaks, okay, I'm gonna have to I'll be forced to abandon my if we can convincingly break this line. I might be forced to have to abandon temporarily the down thesis. I think overall the down thesis is still intact. I wouldn't want to be getting long these markets for any length of time. In my mind, this crash could have just as easily bounced up and then continued falling down. So I think there's a lot of danger in these markets. Personally, the risk to reward isn't worth it for me. I feel like, preserving my capital at the moment is more important in my mind. But and again, like we've talked about, we've been inverted on the yield curve for so long, and we could be looking at recession coming up soon, and recession means lower markets. The unemployment rate is starting to rise, which is a good thing for inflation, but a bad thing for being in a recession. It's also a bad thing for the stock market. So that's kind of where I see the markets at. Not too much has changed since last week. Stocks have been flat. They were up, then they came down. Crypto was the opposite. It went down, then it came up. Overall, things are still fairly flat and flat, boring, but yeah, that's those are my thoughts this week.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will keep moving on just because we're limited today. Appreciate it, buddy. Stick
Thanks,
around.
buddy.
News. We
All
don't
right.
need Moon. We need a stable price for Monero. A stable, good price. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Monero, I overall, I feel like has been relatively stable. I don't know. Maybe Bawdy would disagree with that. But yeah, ultimately, we're not concerned about price. If anything, these are good times to, acquire the correct perception of where you should be in terms of with crypto and Monero in general, which is building out the circular economy, man. And there's no better time than now, right? When you're less distracted by price, when things start to go haywire in either direction, people lose focus of the purpose. But since we're just kind of like hanging out, not doing much, I feel like everybody's got their head down and they're just working, which is good. Right, Tux? What do you think? How do you feel about the Monero ecosystem in general, outside of price?
I mean, yeah, no, I think the Monero ecosystem, that's one of the draws to it. Cause like I see people like, regardless of, the market condition, right? People are just doing stuff. People are building stuff. Now, obviously it hurts everyone a little bit when the price goes down. Sometimes CCSs get paused and stuff like that. But I see people building stuff for Monero all the time. It's just people are always working on stuff, which is cool to see.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It keeps it going.
There's genuine motivation there outside of price. Okay, let's move it along. I guess we'll do dev report next.
Yeah, I think so. Let's go ahead and run that.
All right, let's do it.
And now for the Monero development segment.
All right.
Hey,
what's up?
Comrade, you there?
Yeah.
Welcome.
We haven't talked in a long time.
Yes, it's been a while. Thanks for taking this on. I offered you the opportunity and you jumped at it.
Well,
go ahead.
Better first than second. So, Monero Vegas. You've sent me a link about a Monero casino.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I think the imagination of it is really good. We haven't seen any casinos for Monero yet, but this might be the first one to make a launch for good. As we see, they give a good description of their fairness, and we also see that their house edge is really good compared to other fiat casinos. Like fiat, it's like 10%, and this is 2%. So fairness. First of all, the server generates 250-bit seed for the user for the game, and when the user is on the deposit screen, it shows an SHA 256 hash of that. So the user doesn't know the real seed of it.
Okay.
And the TXID, the 32-byte TXID is determined by the user transaction, which we see when we initiate a transaction. For example, you choose which one do we need to test it.
Yeah, what are the different? Do you explain the game a little bit?
By
the way, we should say so. I don't know, Comrade, if you're familiar. First of all, Comrade is a super young guy, extremely talented. We've had him on here before. He worked on, what was the thing that you had originally worked on?
The Monero sublet, which got paused for a bit because neither me or Luke had a job, so he's been searching for that.
Yeah, so we brought Comrade on and he talked about that, and then we met Comrade at MoneroCon in Prague. Because I think we're the ones that inspired you to go, right? I think it was.
Yeah, well, you basically invited me for free, so thank you again.
Yeah. So that was amazing. We met him in person, and Digun is no longer doing these dev reports. So I reached out to Comrade, and he jumped on it. But what I wanted to bring up was this isn't an entirely new concept. I don't know, Comrade, if you saw or if you were aware. Like I said, you're a pretty young guy. So when Plinko was around, I mean, you were probably
Minko, yes.
Minko. You're probably only like 12 years old. But are you familiar with Minko?
No, I've searched up.
Okay, so Minko was the first version of this. That was done by Binary Fate, and
Yep.
it did have some good traction. I don't entirely remember why he ended up closing it down. I don't know if it was, I don't know, just didn't want to deal with potential regulatory issues, or just had a few unlucky streaks where they were effectively losing more money than gaining. But it has been attempted in the past, so it's interesting to see it back in action. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and actually explain the game.
Of course. So the creator also mentions that they are inspired by Minko, but not related. So we should keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
The game has 16 levels, 16 levels of dots, and each dot has a 50% of going left or right. We see that here. But there's the house edge, which is 2%. Which we see right here at the play. So, for example, if we choose the last line,
Mm-hmm.
we only get our money back at the third dot. So it has to go either left or right, then left or right, then left or right. And here is if it only goes right for a bit, then left for a bit, is that if we get our money back. And if it goes in the middle, which it has the most percentage of, because it's 2% house edge, then we lose money. And I think we also could say that we do not promote gambling in any form.
Yeah. yes, this is true. This is for demonstration purposes only.
Yes, and also they mentioned that it's legal for them to operate, but people playing the games should check out their laws.
Yeah. It's not that we're against gambling. It's if you want to gamble, just make sure you're in a regime where it's legal to do so, or if it's not legal to do so, you can get away with it without getting in trouble.
Yes. And also their TOS mentions that you reached the age of majority for any people around my age. I myself do not promote gambling in any way, and this is just for a test.
Yes. Just to be
yes.
Don't worry, you're outside of the U.S. We got a little wiggle room there as well. But yes, this is just
won't become knocking at your doors.
Of course.
This is just a test. We are displaying the system here. We're going to test it out. We should say, too, that while it is provably fair in terms of what they've laid out, it actually isn't open source, right? So nobody's seen the code.
Yes.
So there is trust involved right now.
Of course.
I believe Minko was actually completely open source, I believe, and you were able to look at everything. These guys, I think they've even said they're going to keep it closed source, right?
Yes, I think FAQ is mentioning that.
Like they're gonna post the code, but
no, I can't find it. I think I've seen it somewhere.
Yes, I saw it in the Reddit.
Yeah, of course, yes. Also, I haven't tested the site yet, so this will be a really good indication of what it looks like for a user to just join and test the site, if there's any complications or not.
Sweet, let's do it.
So, Doug, you choose which one should we try? The blue, the green, or the yellow line?
Let's go with the blue.
Sure. So here we can set our payout address, which I will get from my Monero wallet.
Cool. Now, you guys could see how this could potentially become a quite addictive game. Like
yes.
Minko, I think, was doing very well. Was getting a lot of usage. It was also beautifully designed, Makyo. It was very elegantly designed. This is nice, a little simpler.
Okay, so we insert our payout address here, and we press continue. Then we get a screen showing. So we can only send at least 0.01 XMR and and 0.4 XMR maximum, because I think it's because their coverage.
Yes, they don't want to go broke.
Yes. So we get an address which we can send the Monero to, or if we use phone for the Monero wallet, we can use the QR code as well. So I think I'm going to send 0.02 XMR, and
let's do 0.1. Let's
point
let's
one.
make it count.
Sure.
Let's make it count.
Sure. Yes, sure. And I think a normal fee will be good. Of course, confirm.
Even though this is for testing purposes only, we might as well make it count.
Okay, so we get the transaction ID, and we are waiting for the payment to arrive at their side. And it's arrived.
Yes.
Oh,
This is all.
The sounds of it, I don't know if you can hear it.
oh yeah, I hear it.
I love it.
Well, we
All right,
won.
We got right.
We won thousands of an XMR.
Nice. All right. Let's let it ride. Let's let it ride. Do it again.
So let's see if I got it back in my wallet, and I did. So it's instantaneous.
Oh, that's amazing. It's already
Yes.
the transaction already was sent. Oh wow.
Yes.
That's really, really cool. And just so kind of explain again. So how it in choosing whether it's going left or right, that is basically it's getting that decision from somehow from the Monero blockchain is affecting it, right?
Yes. So where did it mention? 1 second. So the ball hits 16 times every 2 bytes the path of a single ball. 32 balls, yes. So the game has 1 ball because of, I think, calculation issues. Maybe they will implement more balls soon, because this is just a beta.
Okay. But if you go back to the provably fair part,
yes,
I'm
it
just
mentions.
trying to understand that a little bit more. Where
So basically,
the outcome random.
Yeah, so it has a 50% probability, and the fairness of it is that both the game has a seed and the user has a TX ID, and they are combined. So it determines it by some mathematics, which I think is wrote down here in this line. So yes, the ball hits the bag 16 times. So every 2 bytes determines the path of a single ball. So every 60 bits is determined 1 dot. So
right.
it's.
I guess I'm not totally understanding how it's. My understanding it's the Monero blockchain is affecting the outcome. Is providing.
Yes.
TXID,
So
right?
yes, the TXID and combined to 56 bits of it.
All right, and that's what's okay.
So it's
so
added
creative.
Yes.
I wonder
it's
what other implementations of this could be. I mean, the Plinko is very cool. What else can you do? I guess you could do kind of like dice games, right? I mean, are you guys familiar with Satoshi Dice?
Not really.
Okay, that was like the first, really the first use case of Bitcoin. I think even before it was on being used on dark markets. I could be wrong about that, but it was super early, Satoshi Dice, and it was a gambling thing where you could gamble your Bitcoin. And I don't know if it was provably fair though, and everything, and if it was based off the blockchain itself. But I'm curious. I guess there's other implementations you can do, right? It doesn't just have to be Plink, right? You could do like dice games and things like that.
Of course. In my opinion, we could test it 2 more times so we see the fairness of it. If it's really fair, if it's really a fair game.
Let's do it.
So I think it's only fair if we go again with blue, and I'll insert another.
Do we have any idea who's behind this? Are they known?
There's a Reddit figure. I think they haven't mentioned any IRL names.
Okay. Would be cool to get somebody to jump on.
Yes, in my opinion too. Another 0.01 XMR with normal fee. Oh, the problem is that they sent the money already, but unlock balance is lower than that, so we cannot test it right now.
Oh,
Oh, how much were you trying to do? 0.1?
Yes, 0.1.
Oh, I got you.
I mean 0.01.
Oh, 0.01. Gotcha.
Yes.
Here, you want me to? Here, I'll do it real quick. Let me open my cake.
Sure.
I'll just scan
Thank
the
you.
QR code.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's
Anybody else wants to send additional?
Actually, let me open it on my computer. It'll be faster. Oh yeah, it's already ready to go.
Play on orange and go for the big money. All right, let's do it.
Yeah. So go orange.
All right, give me 1 second.
We want to test its fairness, so we'd like to see 3 times the same color.
Oh, okay. I mean, would that really test the fairness?
I mean, kind of, because then we know if, like, the percentages. So if it's 3 times maybe win, or 2 times lose, one times win, I mean once win, then we can see if it's really a 2%.
Right. I mean, I guess we'd have to do that many times to really.
Yes.
Here we go.
We actually built a life-size version of this and had it at DEF CON.
So we got it back again. I mean,
Nice.
Yeah, well, we haven't lost
in this
anything
position.
yet.
Yes. So in this position, I think the only thing that these two could lose is the transaction fee.
Okay.
But of
yeah.
course, if it would have hit the 0.65, then we would have lost.
Let's go slightly bigger and go on orange. Let's have some fun here.
Of course.
Like send a larger transaction.
Yeah, I'll do it again. Hold on.
Tux, I'll pay you back. Send like
How much?
send like $5 worth.
Okay.
Whatever point.
Grab that QR code.
Their maximum is 0.02 XMR. Keep that in mind.
Oh, 0. Oh, it changed. Oh, because you changed.
Yeah, because we changed the
I
color.
gotcha. That makes sense.
Oh, wait, what happened? Because we're doing a different.
Yes,
color.
so different colors mean you can win bigger. So it changes the maximum amount, so they don't go broke if we or someone wins.
Got it.
That is about $3.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do the full max.
All right, it's going.
0.02 Monero.
Oh yeah, I'm making mad money.
I hope we don't bankrupt them live on air here.
The only con of this that I see is that it doesn't have to be a confirmed payment. So
Yeah,
someone,
just to be sent.
so
which is
theoretically, yes, theoretically someone could exploit the system because it doesn't have to be a confirmed amount.
Try to
good
do like
ideas, huh?
a double spend. Trying
Yes.
to hack it.
Double spend
Yeah.
the casino.
If it can be, I'm sure people will try, right? So it'll be interesting. Here we go, baby.
Yeah. So here we see that we lost.
We
We
lost.
lost the half. So it's not an only win platform. That's why I said not to really gamble.
That's the ultimate lesson, guys. That's the ultimate lesson. Wow. All right. Lost $1.50 on that one. Well worth it, though. Well worth the entertainment of watching that ball bounce back and forth. Yeah, we built a physical version of this for DEF CON when
Yes,
Minka was popular
Oh, that's cool.
back in the day. All right. This is great.
Okay.
Great job, comrade. Thank you for jumping in and taking the dev report.
I hope for the next time I will have time to make a normal presentation.
No, you did a fantastic
this is cool.
job.
Yeah.
On the spot. On the spot.
Play do some Monero gambling on the stream. Oh yeah.
Dude, you nailed it. And I gave you very short notice, so greatly appreciate it, man. All right, so I guess moving on, so we can continue to try to keep the show short.
Thanks, ComradeBlin.
Thank you so much, Comrade.
Yeah, I guess we're going to the news. I think Tony is coming on.
Let's do the news.
Let me ping him real quick. Yeah, I'll go ahead and run the.
You got the links though? You have the links, right?
I do. Yeah, I have those all open. But I think Tony's actually coming on to do that, so he's gonna have to open those.
You could do viewers on stage. I don't know if anybody wants to jump up.
I don't know if we'll have time
on Mika, and then we'll just run through the news. We'll do that.
Tony's coming on.
Okay, Tony's coming on. Run viewers on stage. Let's see if anybody wants to join us for the news. And we won't let you talk too much, but if people want to come up, let's do it.
It's the Viewers on Stage segment. It's that time where we invite you, the viewers, up on stage to comment on anything you've heard so far today, ask the guest a question, or maybe talk about one of the news topics. Come on down.
Oh, Tony's here.
All right, we got Tony, and if anybody wants to join us, Tux, if you could bring him up. Tony, we do not hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
How's it going, Tony?
So the camera angle is going to be a bit weird because I have an external monitor. So I'm actually looking at the monitor, but this is my camera. So if you see my nose a lot.
All right, you have a beautiful profile, Tony. You're beautiful from every angle. So
this one is the best.
You want to go ahead and jump in the news since Tony got on?
What was that? Sorry?
Can you go ahead and jump into the news now that Tony's on?
Yes.
Yeah,
Jump into the news.
All right. I'll run that one too.
Okay, so let's do it. So, do you want me to read one and then talk about it, or how do you want to
try to give a quick little summary, and then we'll see if we have any comments.
We have like 10 minutes, so.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna read off the Cointelegraph stuff because it's mostly CBDCs, and then if you have anything to say, okay, and then we move on to Twitter stuff.
Oh, it's Tom Emmer on. Why don't you just play the video? I sent the link of that's more entertaining. Play his.
Okay, so we're gonna play this one first.
Yeah.
Is the audio working?
Chairman Hill, I want to thank you.
Yes.
It's working? Okay, so before I play it, so basically Tom Emmer, he talked about a government tool for financial surveillance is un-American. We must urgently develop a digital financial system that is, 1, open and freely accessible to all, of course. 2, without requiring permission from the government or anyone else, of course. And 3, private, safeguarding the user's identity. So let's play the video.
Chairman Hill, I want to thank you. This is an important hearing that you're holding today, and I appreciate it. Open, permissionless, and private. What do I mean by this? In our digital economy, all transactions are intermediated by banks, governments, or big tech. We must develop digital tools that function like cash. These digital assets must be open and freely accessible to all, without requiring permission from the government or anyone else, and private, safeguarding the user's identity. These qualities are fundamental to a free society. And unfortunately, the administrative state would rather have a cashless economy run on a central bank digital currency, a tool that communists have, than to work to maintain our American values in the digital age. The need to protect Americans' right to financial privacy is an all-time high. That's why I introduced the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act with over 50 of my colleagues. This bill prevents unelected bureaucrats from creating a tool for financial surveillance. If not open, permissionless, and private, like cash, a CBDC is nothing more than a CCP-style surveillance tool that will oppress the American way of life, and we're not going to allow that to happen. Mr. Chair, I'd like to submit for the record my December 1st letter to the Susan Collins at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston about their shady CBDC pilot they've been running.
Without objection, and the gentleman's time.
All right. Yeah, so he basically just pitched Monero, right?
Yes, somebody should get on developing some kind of digital cash as soon as they possibly can.
Yeah, it's a great idea, Tom Emmer. I tried getting this guy on the show numerous times. When I ran for Congress, after I ran, I thought I'd have the ability to get him. I spoke to his office and everything, but I don't know. He dodged me.
That's interesting. I didn't even see that video yet. I saw people sending it around. That's
Yeah, I will say I think it's interesting that he's dodged me so much with not wanting to come on the show. But I've seen him on what's that chick's name? She's a big Zcasher. So he's Naomi Brockwell. I've seen him on Naomi Brockwell's show talking about I think Zcash came up. So
he's implying Monero without directly saying it because he's not allowed to say Monero.
Yes, but I guess what I want to get out too is like the Zcash community or Z Corp or they do a very good job at getting to these types of people. Monero community needs to do a better job at that. I mean, also I guess we don't really care. We're out here just doing our own thing, building the tech.
No, because we don't want we're not here trying to fit the legal system or whatever.
No, we're not, but it also helps, right? Like that's why I ran for Congress in 2020, like for all the things he's saying, right? Like make Monero America's crypto. It aligns with our ideals. But it's just interesting to see that he still is like not really talking about Monero, even though he's literally describing Monero.
I do think that it's very important. I mean, people do a lot of amazing work, but in the confines of the walls. But then you do need to step up eventually, and the community needs to, so that people know of Monero, not just the small community. So we need to make sure that we reach to these people. Like
it's not saying bend the knee in any way, but let's have the public debate, especially if it's eventually going to come down to them trying to ban Monero, right? We need to make sure that we properly express why it aligns with the ideals of a free and open society. All right, next story. Keep moving.
One more thing. So he also mentioned that the administration has made it clear President Biden is willing to compromise the American people's right to financial privacy for surveillance-style CBDC. So I'm happy that we have someone in that can pitch to Congress anti-CBDC, and it's not just everybody agreeing with CBDCs. I'm glad that we have an opposite force as well. But then we have Wyoming with the stablecoin. So are state digital currencies even possible? Now, this one is interesting because what if we're not just going to have the US dollar, but then every single state is going to have their own digital currency? In April, a similar initiative was proposed in Texas as well, where lawmakers introduced bills for creating a state-based digital currency backed by gold, which is very interesting. But they said that Wyoming needs to be able to transact in a digital currency, to accept payments, to make payments, and to do so without risk. The Wyoming stablecoin token is the solution to that challenge. And then they also mentioned, I'm not sure where exactly. Oh yeah, the era of multiple stablecoins. So neither the U.S. Federal Reserve nor any crypto-focused legislators have reacted publicly to the Wyoming project, but it is hard to imagine any kind of affirmative response, given that the American dollar was established precisely to provide the countrywide monetary standard and bring the currency under the purview of the federal government. So the they're basically saying that we're not issuing a new currency. The Wyoming stablecoin is a digital representation of a US dollar held in trust by the state of Wyoming on behalf of the token holder. We are not competing with the Federal Reserve. We are enabling a technology. So Wyoming and Texas are so far onto these types of projects. Then we have Israel, Hong Kong, complete retail CBDC test emphasizing privacy, inclusivity. So Hong Kong, Bank of Israel, and the Bank for International Settlements teamed up to address the complex issues of our CBDCs. And they mentioned that, let me see where it was exactly, because there's the Hong Kong, Israel, and one more country, I think, but they don't want to mention it for some reason. But so the project is called Sela, and in the Sela ecosystem, the central bank that issues an RCBDC maintains a ledger for it with pseudo-anonymous end-user accounts and provides instantaneous settlement with real-time gross settlement system. So pseudo-anonymous is like in Bitcoin. Yes, it might be a large string, and you're not going to know that, oh, this is tuxedo or this is dog. But guess what? That string will be attached to your passport, or your ID or something. So then even if it's pseudo-anonymous, they will still be able to know that it's you. So basically, you're not going to have privacy. They're emphasizing pseudo-anonymity, but it's not full-on privacy that we want, essentially. And then we have SWIFT, enrolls free central banks in CBDC interoperability, beta test, expand sandbox. And here we have Hong Kong again, the Central Bank of Kazakhstan, and an unnamed central bank. So I'm really wondering which country this is as well. So yeah, they've joined the beta phase of bank messaging platform SWIFT's central bank digital currency interoperability project. The company announced September 13th, so a lot of countries are onto it. SWIFT is a big company. SWIFT messaging connects over 11,500 financial institutions worldwide, so it's big. And they will include a wholesale CBDC project in conjunction with the New York Federal Reserve Bank using a regulated liability network. So everybody is working on CBDCs. Now, quick mention on Monero Vegas. You can check it out. So this is the website if you want to gamble with Monero.
we just did that. We just did a whole thing on that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, you can see that.
Monero Vegas. Then let's mention the hypocrisy of the Zcash leadership has reached new heights. On August 8th, 2022, the same day Tornado Cash was sanctioned, they released a blog post which said, this is a long post. I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously.
Yeah, so this was, I'll try to explain this a little bit. So the whole privacy pools thing, we talked about, I did a show on it last week, or had somebody that came on and talk about privacy pools. Is it's a new proposal, similar to Tornado Cash. It's for Ethereum, and basically the solution that they're trying to implement is that people can effectively mix their coins while also proving in a zero knowledge proof way that they haven't mixed their coins with any undesirable coins. And so Zuko came out and is opposed to this concept for all the reasons that many in the Monero community are opposed. It's kind of taking a guilty to proven innocent approach, right? As opposed to Monero, where we assume that we're all innocent until proven guilty. With privacy pools, it's that they're effectively moving everybody in a direction where we can have our privacy if we're willing to comply with the government. So is that really privacy at the end of the day? Is that default privacy? Or is that lead to a system where governments can essentially manipulate and censor based on who they're putting on these ban lists, right? So that's where the censorship comes in. So it sounds great in theory that you could have a system where your coins never mix with bad people's coins, but who's deciding who the baddies are, right? That's always been the problem. That's why we fear totalitarian governments, because they're the ones that determine who's good and who's bad. And yeah, we may all think that some group that's just out there murdering people is bad, but if it's some political group, some minority political group that may have some opinions that disagree with the political party in power, they may not necessarily be ethically bad. But the government may decide to ban them, right? It's what we saw with the Canadian trucker rally and why Monero actually really got on the radar as being this tool for censorship resistance. And here we are, we have Vitalik pushing the entire crypto ecosystem towards more of a compliance way of dealing with privacy and building compliance essentially into privacy tools. And it's kind of ironic that Zuko is out here now arguing against it when he is very much, I wouldn't say pro-compliance, but I guess I would say that. I mean, all his actions, right? The decisions that they've made in Zcash have always been with taking into account what the regulators are saying and what the governments are saying, and making sure that everything is at the end of the day compliant. It's why we see Zcash on exchanges, for example, in New York City, and we don't see Monero listed on any. But yeah, if you want to play, I think there is you could play a clip from this. I highly recommend people to actually check this interview out. I would have loved to get these two guys on myself. That would be amazing. But you could just play.
Before you do that, I gotta run. Are you good, Doug, to be able to end the stream?
I think we're good. Thank you, Tuck, so much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming on, Tony.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Have a good weekend, man.
Cheers.
Bye, Tuck.
Anybody notice that the guy in the top right looks like Terry Davis?
Yeah, he does.
I know who Terry Davis is. Who's Terry Davis?
Terry Davis.
All right, whatever.
He's a genius, but, yeah, you can. Yeah, they look alike, kind of. Yeah.
Let's play that clip from, or play some of this video, maybe from like the 53-minute mark. I think was an interesting point.
I think it was like 50. Yeah, because then he talk about Coinbase. But one thing, Zcash is actually on Coinbase. So the fact that Zcash, which is a privacy-enabling crypto, is on Coinbase, which Coinbase is a heavily regulated exchange, I think that's a red flag.
Right. So he's opposed to privacy pools. Although if you listen to his whole conversation, he kind of gets convinced by Vitalik. He's not. I think he walks away less opposed, but he's fundamentally, according to him, philosophically opposed to this idea of, I think, building tools that lean towards, assuming that people are guilty until proven innocent, which is slightly ironic or hypocritical given his willingness to bend the knee with Zcash. But maybe he would disagree with that. And I don't want to go at Zuko too hard. He's already got me blocked on Twitter, so I would like to one day maybe talk to him. Play the clip.
Let's play the video. Yeah.
And I'm very sad. Like it makes me feel good.
What point is this? What mark is this?
What was that?
What play from? Okay, 53. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, 53. Yeah, because then he talks about Coinbase and yeah.
Play that.
If you want to draw lessons from Zcash, you can hate it or you can love it or whatever. But like you mentioned, it's supported in all the regulated exchanges, like Coinbase. There's no detectable levels of evil terrorists using it, even though it has far more users than Tornado Cash ever had, as far as I can tell. Right. And I think this is really useful for teaching policymakers things, because I'm very wary of hypotheticals and vaporware as teaching people the wrong things, right? And I think it's very useful to be able to say to people, like, look, this
I think at this point he gets into like a whole nother conversation. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want me to
let it go a little bit? Yeah, you can let it go a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
It exists. It has existed for a long time. It's got lots of users who are using it for all these totally normal purposes. Anyway, I don't know how I got onto that.
Let it go. Let it go.
You spent,
yeah,
and we spent a considerable amount of time and energy.
No, let it keep going.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I didn't stop it. So
around the world.
That's why.
And we had these issues where, after the Koichek hack in 2018, Zcash was effectively banned, de facto banned,
in Japan,
because it was an easy button in Japan. Yep.
Yeah,
so
even though no
Zcash
was involved, no Zcash was stolen by the Koichek hackers.
Right.
and no Zcash was used by the coin check hackers in their subsequent operations. But nonetheless, the response was, let's ban Zcash so that we can be seen to do something.
Yeah, and it wasn't
Something
just Zcash,
must be
it was
done.
anything
This
that
is
was
something.
Yeah, it was anything that was privacy protecting, right?
Yeah.
And I think they like in the case of Japan, for example, the regulators have gotten a lot more intelligent about this stuff over the years and a lot smarter. We spent a lot of time, and I know others have spent a lot of time providing that education. And the narratives have even kind of shifted a little bit. So it's not even just privacy is a concern, but privacy plus self-custody, or the ability to have self-custody. Because if I have self-custody and I can obfuscate kind of information, then I can evade capital controls and I may, be able to funnel money into different places. So the dynamics have shifted. But I think, in those early years, and we got called in. We got called in there. We got called into the U.S. government and various departments.
You got called in
about how this stuff works and kind of an understanding. And we were also, it's been hinted at that we take, we figure out other kinds of solutions that might be amenable to the government, where they would effectively have a backdoor and be able to access new information.
You're saying people accuse us of creating a backdoor for the government?
No. The government has requested that be included. That's come up multiple times.
I would qualify that by saying a few specific, like 2 or however many specific actors within the government have dropped that hint, right?
Yes, but in an official capacity.
This is interesting.
Yeah, okay.
The
government have officially dropped that hint.
But it's like a non-starter for to your you're talking about Paul's work on Hill and with folks working on policy. Like it's a non-starter for a huge chunk of of our political folks in DC who are working on policies, who want access to things like a digital cash. They want access to they don't, and they kick against anything that would allow themselves or regulators in the U.S., this country now we love, to have that kind of access. So it's not a one-dimensional. This is what the government thinks. It's a very nuanced kind of conversation.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that there are other. Can I clarify? Because just to make sure I understand what you're saying, Josh. You're saying there's other actors like senators or congressmen or other departments or someone who basically have opposite strategy or opposite values or opposite desired policy here. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Or did I totally misunderstand again?
Nope, that's totally what I'm saying.
But that reminds me of something that I don't know if Vitalik probably doesn't know this story. A zillion years ago, you had to get a bit license if you wanted any New York exchanges or exchanges that had New York customers or whatever. And so we flew to New York several times and gave lectures and tutorials to the New York Department of Financial Services, because they're the people who add coins to the bit license whitelist. And we explained all about cryptography and encryption and all this stuff, right? And then they called us back for another meeting, and we were a little confused because there were no further questions. We'd already explained everything. So we were like, why are we going back? Okay, let's go back. So we all flew to New York again. And this time they had the whole department lined up on their side of the giant long table. And to open the meeting, the head of the department gestured to his colleagues and said, "We all agree that we don't want the pocketbooks of our friends and families being exposed to everyone on the internet." And it was like, oh, that's why they called us back, to say that they've decided that they too value consumer protection and the protection of society, and that's why they're approving Zcash to be one of their whitelisted coins. So the point of this story is, I think there's a few mistakes it's easy to make, especially because of the intense, the heartbreak and the high stakes for the Tornado Cash developers and for your and my friend Virgil and so forth. I think there's some easy mistakes to make that just like I think regulators are easily confused by all the things they don't know and easily played by someone who tells them, I'll sell you a new technology that does everything you want. I think likewise, we cryptocurrency people are easily sort of overgeneralize by all the things we don't know and say, oh, the government is definitely going to ban privacy because it can't tolerate privacy. When in fact, that's a very complicated, nuanced thing in my experience.
All right. We could cut it there.
Yeah,
I recommend listening to the whole. Obviously, this is like, I love this. This is a great.
It's really engaging. Like it's very interesting.
Vitalik and Zuko. These guys are big brains from the like them or not, for whatever. I mean, they're amazing. What they've done for the space is amazing.
Yes.
And Zuko he's an interesting character, man. I mean, he's super old school crypto from the I think he was like one of the wasn't he one of the first guys interacting with Satoshi? He was among one of the first.
Wow.
And so much respect to him. It's fun to watch what he has to say here and talk about the history. Like, Zcash was approaching these exchanges and the regulators, and that's how they were getting listed in New York. Interesting, which makes complete sense. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Alaska Anon, man. What do you think? You have any opinions here? What is your take on Zcash? I don't know if I ever heard your Zcash take.
I think one of the funniest things about what was just said is the people at the table are saying, yeah, we don't want our data out on the internet. But these are the same people that believe that they are entitled to a back door. They're entitled to look into these. And there's a saying about the most terrifying tyrant is the one that believes he's tyrannizing you for your own good, right? Well, I have to have this power so I can protect you, but you should definitely not have this power, this like holier than thou mindset. But then you look over here on the left at Vitalik, and he's kind of floating the same idea, like, well, we'll make lists of, compromised stuff and we'll just keep them out of the pool, but you can still have privacy and my coins will still be anonymous, but we just have to keep those guys out. It's the same idea, right? And then the irony of somebody who has shielded and unshielded transactions also trying to make the same case, but in a different way, right? Where it's like, well, some transactions don't need to be private, but other ones do. So it's just three layers of the same absolutely ridiculous position, only they're like a little more quiet about the fact that they're tyrants, right?
Great assessment. Yeah, I think that's why I'm struggling with it, right? There's hypocrisy there. When Vitalik had asked Zuko, like, what, are you worried about Zcash? Are they going to try to ban Zcash? And it kind of came up multiple times. You'd always go back to this point. Well, actually, it's been shown that no bad people are using Zcash. He kind of always go back to that point. Like, but nobody. We've done studies or whatever, and nobody bad is using Zcash. The thing with Tornado Cash is it was hackers that were trying to wash Ethereum. He's like, nobody. It's different because there's nobody. He kept suggesting that it's like nobody bad is using Zcash, which is not a good answer to that question. I mean, inevitably, bad people are going to use your technology if it's permissionless, and you need a better answer than that. You can't be Mr. Privacy for all and innocent until proven guilty, yet like unwilling to realize that bad people are going to use your tech, because otherwise you just find yourself bending the knee to regulators. So it's like he's trying to be this guy that's not bending the knee to regulators when his actions speak otherwise, I feel like.
That's a very good point from both of you. And it's like with cash, we have rapists, we have people that use cash dollars. You can't not have them use that form of money. You're gonna have criminals, terrorists, rapists, and so on use that form of money. You can't just have a clean Zcash, only benevolent people are using it. That's not that's not a good answer. Like in Monero, yeah, we have a lot of people that use it for good stuff, but then we also have people that use it for terrorist acts and so on. Of course, we don't want that, but it's gonna happen.
Yep. Bawdy, all on the dime of their user base and that 20% dev tax, which is an important point. I mean, I think that is a weakness for the Zcash project.
Well, if you put this into the context of that guy who was talking about the government's coming with their CBDCs and we want private anonymous digital cash, and this is a guy who's collecting his dev tax, talking about how we need privacy, and then like the government collects their dev tax, right? Like, we allow you to exist freely, so you owe us money. And then there's this guy over here talking about, oh, bad people aren't using my stuff, and, you know, collecting his 20% dev tax and offering the choice of privacy. It's all the same charade. It's just like a different way of doing it. Like they're all doing the same thing, though, where like there already exists freedom for everyone, but everybody has like their one group that they don't like and their one group that they like, and they're just trying so hard to find a way to exclude these guys and include these guys. And
yeah, the dev tax, in my opinion, is going to be an issue given what we saw with Tornado Cash, right? Because it becomes proof that there's this centralized component to Zcash, and there's this group of individuals that benefit from the use of Zcash, which will various ways. Monero, I believe, has done a better job at making the tool just a pure open source tool where there is no distinct group that is benefiting from the usage of it. There is no corporation behind Monero. All right.
But regardless of whether you agree with Vitalik and Zalk or you don't, because of these two, now people think about privacy, at least, because I think there's 3 levels. One, people didn't think about privacy, then they discover maybe these two talk about privacy, and then they look into it, and then they might think, oh, this is not really the privacy that I want. It doesn't make sense. And then they go into the 3rd level, which is the Monero type of privacy. So even if we have a step in the middle, I think it's still appreciated that they talk about privacy and they lead people in the right direction eventually. So
Yep. Yeah, all good stuff for the movement in general.
My question is how is he doing these studies where he was verifying that no bad guys were using his currency and then touting the values?
There was a Rand report done, I think, at one point that has been referenced. That group Rand is always involved in the sketchy.
Yeah, like the same people behind Iran Contra are now going.
I don't know. It's like the CIA funded Rand. Like, I don't know, Rand Corporation. They always do these studies for the government. But yeah, it's just a horrible thing to lean on. Be like, well, it's actually not used for crime that much.
The world's largest criminal organization that moves the most cocaine worldwide has told us that we are totally a legitimate organization, not guilty of any kind of crime.
Yeah. People don't use, when people want to do bad stuff, they don't use Zcash. When they want privacy, they use Zcash, but never if they want to do anything bad will they use it.
If it costs your life, I mean, you don't want to risk, so you might as well use Monero.
It's just,
especially when it comes to privacy. Let's talk about Lightning Network. So Seth for privacy, obviously he's very, very well versed in IT, Bitcoin, Lightning Network, Monero, of course. So he talks about, he said, not gonna lie, most of the time using Lightning I just absolutely hate it. And this comes from a person that is very, very well versed in IT. And then this is supposed to be a technology that is used by your grandma, your grandpa.
Yeah, and Seth has really tried to give it a fair shot. You know, I think a lot of us in the Monero land are just like, screw you, Lightning, for various reasons. But Seth has really tried to, with an open mind, see the good in the Lightning Network. And it seems like he's concluding that it's not all it's cracked up to be.
And it's very important because, so he likes Monero, but it's very important that he also battle tested Bitcoin and all its tools, because it's very important not to remain focused on, okay, Monero is the best and I don't care about anything else. It's good to venture out and say, test out Zcash, test out Bitcoin, Lightning Network, like be open-minded. And then that's when you truly show that you care about privacy and not the name Monero, because ultimately we care about what Monero does and not the name Monero. So he talked about Lightning Network. He just wanted to send $175, and he said it's literally impossible because of routing failures. And he talked about the process. Then he mentioned Phoenix, and he said that this tool has been better for him. But so this tool, Phoenix, they do all the routing for you, but you gave up 100% of your privacy. So do you want them to handle everything and then you lose your privacy, or so?
I didn't even know that on the Phoenix wallet. Like, wait, what's the deal with really?
Yeah, he said, yeah, you know why? Because they do all the routing, and thus you give up 100% of your privacy to Phoenix. And he said that trade-off isn't worth it for me, and like it's not worth it.
Oh, they're saying later versions will eventually be private. Okay. Yeah, the one time I used Lightning, I used Phoenix because that was Peter Todd wanted me to pay him, and he recommended I use Phoenix. And I've talked about this numerous times. It ended up being a real pain in the ass. And I had to pay like $8 in transaction fees or whatever it was, $5 in Bitcoin just to send my Bitcoin to the Lightning Network. And then the Lightning transaction itself ended up costing as much as a Monero transaction. It wasn't like it was, and the worst part was he had sent me an address to send to, an invoice they called in Lightning. And then the invoice expired when I went to send. I finally was ready to send, and I had to resend the. It was a horrible user experience.
Such a hassle. I think the
most Phoenix, which is supposed to be like the theoretically the easiest way.
Yeah,
you're losing your privacy as you do it.
I wonder how long those transactions, those Lightning invoices take to expire, because you could have used Trocador because they support Bitcoin Lightning, where you can just send Monero to Trocador and then they'll send Lightning to whoever you want.
I should have obviously. Lesson learned. I was, trying to go along with Peter Todd, and he wanted to teach me how great Lightning was. So I went through the exercise, right? Like
you tried.
Yeah, if anything, it probably taught you how not why not to use Lightning.
Right, exactly. But you got to give these things the benefit of the doubt, like Tony's saying, which is why Seth is so respected among a lot of the crypto community, not just Monero people, because he does approach things with an open mind, and he has the ability to actually analyze this stuff. And it's interesting to see, despite all that, he's realizing that Lightning really isn't working out.
There's a privacy podcast called the Watchman Privacy Podcast. I think and Seth was on it. I think he was on it twice. And there was one podcast about how to be private with Bitcoin, and then one podcast on how to be private with Monero. And you had to have the most ludicrous tech savvy brain to follow the Bitcoin privacy guide stuff. And I've been doing this for a decade, and there was all kinds of stuff that was just making my head spin. And then he gets into the Monero one. It's like, oh yeah, you just kind of use it and it just works. and then the whole podcast was about the philosophy of why freedom money is so great or whatever. And it's like, that by itself, it just trying to use Bitcoin privately derails the entire underlying philosophy. The entire initiative behind why I was attracted to Bitcoin in the first place is undermined by the fact that it is impossible to use with regular people.
Yeah, I feel like Lightning Network is good if you're an Arch Linux user, for the people that know. But if we really wanted to use it as a form of money for everybody, like your grandma, your grandma, whatever, it should be something like Monero, because it's so simple. You just type in the address. In Cakewallet, you can even put emojis, and you can send it to...
I pay my 3-year-old in Monero, and he knows how to use it.
If a Lightning transaction is like using Arch, then Monero is like using Windows. It's just that much easier.
Yeah.
I think you said Linux Mint wrong. It's not Windows. It's Linux Mint.
Oh, okay. Or Ubuntu.
Yeah. By the way, I'm running Manjaro, but it's such a pain in the ass. By the way. So yeah, it's complicated. Monero is just simple. I mean, if you can literally set up for your grandma the emoji and cake wallet, Christmas tree, the boss emoji, and you send money, and that's it. Or you can just copy paste the address and send the money. It's really easy. But the last thing that we're gonna mention for this week's episode is, and this really pisses me off whenever it comes to this topic. It's really like depopulation and all that stuff. Dr. Mike Yadon, a former vice president at Pfizer, on how digital ID in conjunction with CBDCs could be used to depopulate the planet with plausible deniability. Some people think that the planet is overpopulated, some think it's underpopulated. We're not going to discuss this, of course. It's a really long topic. But when I saw the design of the vaccines, this is in quotation marks, I knew they were going to injure and kill people. So these are people who don't mind bumping off a few tens of millions. And part of these millions or a few tens of millions could have been your friend's family, and I lost family. My friends lost some family members, like mom and dad, from it. So it's really not nice. And the oncoming digital ID and the necessity to have it for all purposes, and the cashless CBDC. If there was someone who was of bad intent running that, they can make you do anything, like going to get an injection that you don't need, that might be poisonous, which is what I think they'll probably do. A condition of continued validity, in which you require to get money or enter shops, buy an air ticket, or even get on a train, is dependent on you staying up to date. And I think most people will just keep getting the jabs and hoping it wouldn't get them this time. This is what the video talks about. And it's true. Like, for example, in Romania, if you wanted to go to the mall, you had to prove that you took the vaccine. And now nobody asks you anything, even in coffee shops or libraries, if you wanted to go, or even like your job. And now that people took the vaccine, not all of them, I think Romania is pretty low when it comes to vaccination rate, and Bulgaria, I think, too. But if you didn't have it, you couldn't go to a coffee shop. You couldn't go look for books and do whatever you want to do. And now nobody asks anything. Nothing.
That's when you go to Empire and buy one of those fake vaccine pass cards or whatever off of like the dark net.
Not legal advice.
Monero.
Not legal advice. Yeah.
There are other means as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's so.
One of the things about this, and I don't know if you've thought about this, Tony, or whatever, but a lot of people, they say, when they're talking about CBDCs, they're always talking about like, so the tax man can get his cut. And the people need to realize, like, these are the people that print money. They're not like hungry for your money. It's about knowing what you do with your money, so you can be algorithmically gleaned based on your thought crimes or based on how much raw milk you drank the other day or whatever. It's about knowing how you spent what money you have in order to create more effective profiles. It has nothing to do with collecting taxes.
I think, a very good point, and it's the truth. I think what we need to do, we need to take every single politician. We're going to open a Monero wallet for them. We're going to take them to an ayahuasca trip, make them do mushrooms, whatever. So they have spiritual
experiences. Monerotopia, and they'll basically get that experience.
They'll find their way to the good parts.
Exactly. Come to Monerotopia, we'll hook you up with Monero. You can take some mushrooms, and then you're going to be wide awake.
I mean, silver lining once again with all this is we're just seeing more and more of this out there on the internet beyond just, conspiracy theory forums. People are aware of the dangers of CBDCs. We have politicians that are out there speaking out against them. People are aware of the dangers of digital IDs. They're aware of the danger of combining them, given what we saw with COVID and the vaccine passports. So there is this awareness that is growing, and that is the silver lining here. Like, yes, it's bad that it appears we are moving in this direction, but silver lining is we're out there. People are out there talking about it. Yeah, maybe they're getting censored in some ways, but the information is getting out there more than ever, right? We're not just relying on all tuning into TV controlled by big pharma, and it's like you watch the one news source. Twitter's not perfect, but the information's getting out there. A lot of misinformation too, but we are seeing these things discussed, and it's seeping into the minds of a lot of people, and that will bring them towards privacy tech and towards Monero. Straight up.
Yes.
Inevitable.
I agree.
All right. Yeah, we'll end it here in general.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. I will try to. So, guys, thanks everybody for joining. We will see you again next week. We do the shows every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, same time, same place. See you guys all next week. So long.
See you guys next week. Have a good weekend and week. Bye.
God
Ciao.
bless you all.
Ciao.
Record time, that show.
There you go.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and Odyssey, or listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or join us in the Monerotopia Telegram group. See you all next week.
All right. So long, guys.
See ya. Oh, by the way,